welcome everybody to the Beacon of Light podcast. Tonight we have Miss Tasha Madison with us, and I'm so excited. So, as you pop up here live, please tell us where you're from, where you guys are from. We will also share a lot of great information tonight. And so, before we go into all of that, we're going to jump into this. I'm April Tribe Juke. Welcome to the Beacon of Light podcast. I believe we are all made with light, and light is hope. This podcast brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now. All right, and we're back. So welcome, everybody. We are really excited to be here. And Miss Tasha Madison is an amazing person, an amazing writer. And she has for us a new book. And this is a second book in a series. So we're going to let her talk all about that. So before we get into all of that, please again put down where you're from and where, ideas and questions we would really like to invite you to be part of this conversation. Oh, look at that. We got some hearts and likes. We got people here watching. This is awesome. This is awesome. So Tasha, tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get started and rolling in this.
Sure. So my passion really has been fiction for most of my life. I write both historical fiction and young adult fiction. Young adult fiction is kind of my passion. I really love to be able to reach young adult readers and those who like to read YA fiction, because I still do. And I know several adults who do as well. So if you do, welcome to the club. But yeah, I just really want to impart not only a way to escape, a way to be entertained, but also to share a message of hope. I think that's kind of a common thread through all of my works, is the ability to be able to, see light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. Yes, that whole story of hope fits right on in with why we have you here at the Beacon of Light podcast. So I have a few questions for you, and I know we kind of talked a little bit before we started here with the camera, and we wanted to acknowledge some people here. Hello, Tiffany. Thank you so much for jumping in here. Hello, Vivian. Awesome. Thank you guys for great support, and we hope you have questions throughout tonight's podcast. Thank you guys, everybody, for popping in here live. All right. So what is your process in starting to write your fiction work? Like, what happens? Lightning bolts, planning, maybe a combo. What happens?
I think for me, for every writer, it's different. So I just want to kind of preface it by saying that every writer has their own unique process. At least I would argue that. So my particular process, I think I get my best ideas when I'm doing really mundane, everyday things like vacuuming or washing the dishes, or you know what I mean. I tend to have, like you said, those lightning bolt moments when I'm doing just everyday things. Like, in fact, the idea for the Pen Thief series came to me when I was in the car getting ready to go to the grocery store. My sister, I was with my sister and my mom at the time, and we were going to the store together. And my sister had borrowed one of my mom's pens, and she had forgotten to give it back to her. And I jokingly said, "Oh, you pen thief." And then all of a sudden I said, "Oh my God, that would be a great idea for a story." And I immediately just started plotting it on my smartphone in the car. And they were helping me, coming up with ideas. And like 30 minutes in, we were like, "Oh, wait, we have to go grocery shopping. We have to go to the store. That's our purpose for coming here."
Oh, wonderful.
So my process kind of starts in really everyday moments of life. So I would just say that. So I think for all the aspiring writers out there, don't be afraid to live life, because chances are your best ideas are going to come while you're doing just that, living everyday mundane life. So I think that should be an encouragement to everyone, hopefully. And then after that, once I have the seed of an idea, for me, nothing that I write happens without plotting it and planning it. I know there's a lot of people who like to fly by the seat of their pants. I am not one of those people. And I encourage you not to be one of those people. I have some author friends who, they're the type of person who is, editing out, paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, pages and pages, and deleting whole chapters. And I'm like, and starting over again. And I'm like, why are you having to do that? Like, if you plotted your book out, that should not be necessary. Now, writing is a very organic process. So even with plotting and planning, there's going to be some changes as you go along the way, and that's just the nature of developing scenes and developing your characters fully. But I am able to kind of prevent a lot of those kinds of issues because I do plot and because I do plan. So I would say for me, that is like the crux of I think the secret to my writing is the fact that I do plan as much as humanly possible in advance. Now, you can't plan for everything, but I do try to plan as much as I can, at least foresee in the beginning.
I love that. The whole concept of it feels like you really have some control there. You have that idea and ability to really think about something and put things down and direct your characters as much as possible. I know there have been a few times where I've had to do a sit down where I've had this plotting and planning. I actually talked about this a little bit yesterday in this plotting and planning of the character and what's going to be happening next, but almost feeling like my character was like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, Okay." So we had like a sit down, talk out moment with my character. Maybe that's a little crazy, but it was really good because I started to get a little more deeper in a few things and found a pathway to add this really cool piece that will be in the middle of the book. Okay.
Right.
Anyway, so it's really interesting. And that I think that organic piece allows to show up if you have a plan. You don't have a
Yes.
plan, it is, oh, yeah. So I, I encourage all those writers out there, follow Tasha's advice. Really important. Super, super important. So it looks like Vivian says in plotting and planning, starting with the book proposal, is that something similar? Great question. Or does it just come as the outline form? How does this happen for you?
So yes and yes. Yeah, I do create what would be considered a type of book proposal. I always, I think it's always important to be mindful of what's happening in the marketplace. Now, I'm not one of those writers that only writes what I think will sell and that type of thing. But I do think it is important to be mindful of what is already out there. How does your book compare? How is it similar? How does it contrast to some of the other works that currently exist? I do think it's important to do that level of market research. So yeah, I will do some basic research in that regard to find out, how can I differentiate this particular book or this particular series. But then, after that point, yes, it is a matter of basically creating a long form outline. I go chapter by chapter. And I personally have really intense brainstorming sessions. So I'll pull in usually my family members and friends and people who are going to be my alpha readers. And I'll sit down with them and I'll talk about, okay, this is my idea for chapter 1. What do you think? And then we'll just really just hash it out. Then we'll go to chapter 2 once I feel like chapter 1 is complete. And then I'm like, okay, this is what I think should happen in chapter 2 based on what happened in chapter 1. What do we think about this? And then we'll all, toss out ideas, and sometimes we'll nix things. Other times we'll be like, but that doesn't work because of this, And sometimes by the time you get to like chapter, 7 or 8, you're like, oh, wait a second, I've got to go back and add this to chapter 1. And that's one of the reasons why I love to plot and plan, because it allows me to foresee things that I wouldn't otherwise know about until I actually start writing. So I have my entire chapters out of my books outlined, one by one, every single chapter from beginning to end. Now, like I said before, writing is organic, so it will change once I actually start writing. But the good thing is, for me at least, it takes away a huge level of anxiety because I already know what's going to happen. Now, if I start writing a scene and it just isn't working, like you said, when the character kind of speaks to you, I love the way that you put that because it's so true. I've written scenes before, and yeah, the character is just like, nope, this doesn't work. And I think it's so important not to force something. I mean, if what I thought should have worked doesn't, it's important to acknowledge that and then kind of move on from there.
I agree. And Vivian says this sounds like a nice guide, and it is true. If you have a structure, then so just hints for all types of writing out there. If you formulate a structure, you have something to hang on or to delete from. If you don't have the structure, you don't know what you're keeping, what you're missing, and think about it as when the ideas come in, that's your lightning kind of moment. Capture them, look at them, see where they can all go,
Mm-hmm.
and really, really encourage that because it really can guide you in such a way. So I appreciate you sharing that tidbit with us. So next is how can fiction relate to the real world or your real life? Like what would be the purpose of fiction? Like why do we need to read it?
Number one, in my opinion, I think it's just more entertaining than nonfiction. Um, I think there's a misnomer. I think there's a huge misconception about fiction only being in existence for just escapism and entertainment. While that is true, I think fiction, when done extremely well, also does something at a higher level. I think it also can encourage. I think it also can teach lessons, and not in a preachy way, but in when it's done right, you won't even realize it until the story's over, and you're just like, wow, I really related to that character, and all of a sudden you realize that you had something in common that perhaps you didn't realize before. And so I think fiction can truly allow you to be able to become a better person, just like self-help books, right? If you truly take the time to actually delve deeper into like the plot and the character development. And that's actually one of the things that I personally strive to do. And again, I hopefully I do it well enough so that it is seamless, in the sense that it's not really noticeable. But I do believe that fiction can have a message, of positivity, again, a message of hope, and other life lessons that can be relayed through the characters and through the plot. That is something that I always personally try to endeavor to do.
Wow, that's just a great way to summarize all of that all together. And so, speaking of that, the fiction book that we are talking about today, you can see probably running on the ticker underneath there is, go ahead and give us the whole title there, Tasha.
I'll show it too.
Yes.
It's the second book in the Pen Thief series. It's called The Pen Thief and the Chamber of Power. So this is what it looks like. And it's, again, the second book in the Pen Thief series. The first book in the series was called The Pen Thief and the Orbit of Uncertainty. So this is kind of, book two is a continuation of that book.
Awesome. And so I know you shared with how the Pen Thieves title came about. And when that brainstorming session happened with your sister and your mom and everything like that, going to the grocery store, the premise of this particular character is what? What is this character trying to do?
Well, the main protagonist is a teenage boy named Arnie Schmidt. He has just graduated from high school, recently graduated from high school. That's where book one starts, kind of recently after high school graduation. Book two, again, kind of continues along that thread. And he's been the victim of high school bullying. So it kind of it really explores what happens, to, a young teen after high school, especially one who's had to deal with, bullying, and have to deal with the struggle of people not believing him, and have to deal with parents who don't particularly understand him. He's a very nerdy teen. And so he doesn't really relate to people socially, in the way that others would like him to. And so he kind of feels a little bit socially awkward. He feels like he's misunderstood. He feels like he doesn't quite understand what the point of life is at this point. And all the while he's trying to really try to overcome some of his past wounds of being the victim of bullying.
Amazing. I think it's really crucial that many people could relate to the bullying and the after high school. Sometimes we think when school is over, okay, I don't have to face that every single day. Partly true, but like you said, there's wounds to try to heal from. And there's a mindset of if you have been bullied and become a victim, you don't want to stay that victim. Like, how do you get through that to become, somebody who can thrive again or learn how to trust society again? And now you've got this very real bullying happens, and you've placed it in a fictional um, place, society. What's going to happen to Arnie without giving away the whole book?
Well, one of the things that I really wanted to do in the second book was, the first book, I really play around with, his emotions in the first book. I really try to establish the kind of person that he is as someone who is a survivor of bullying, and how it has had basically lasting effects on him, and how he has kind of delayed his life trajectory in terms of his career and his pursuit of his profession because of the things that have happened to him in high school. And then the unexpected things that happened with him with his job that he gets kind of as a you know, with his uncle, just because it's like, oh, this is what I guess what I do since I'm not going to college, kind of a thing. I really try to address that in the first book. Book two, I really, one of the things that I really wanted to do was show the parallel of the survivor of someone who's, you know, who's been bullied, and then the person who's been the perpetrator. And I wanted to show the different perspectives and show what happens when those two perspectives meet, and the level of growth that can occur when both individuals try to understand the other. A lot of times when someone is bullying another person, it's number one because they've been bullied themselves, or because they don't like themselves or their life, and so they have this kind of outward behavior of, you know, treating someone else as less than. And so I really wanted to show the other side of it too, and show how you can have growth on both ends of it, as someone who is the bully and as someone who is the survivor of bullying. And I thought that was really kind of crucial to show how there can be personal growth on both ends, regardless of which side of the spectrum you are on.
Beautifully said, because it is so easy to just glue to one side
Hmm.
and to look on the other side and ask those questions of, well, I wonder why he became the bully in the first place. What happened? What was his life? So very, very great. And it shows the depth, right? Into the depth of these characters and how things can go. It just doesn't skip the surface. It's not shallow. So that's
Right.
really, really awesome. Vivian asks a question, so I'm going to throw it up here. It says, do your young adult readers learn life lessons you present in this book and series?
Yeah, I'm like, as I mentioned before, that really is kind of one of my goals, is to try to embed, you know, little morals and life lessons that can, and encouragement, throughout all of my books, especially my young adult books. And I actually have had young adults who have come, who have read my book, and then, you know, told their teacher, or told me that, hey, I really related to this character. You know, I'm so glad that you wrote this. And to me, there's nothing better that an author could hear than to hear that a young adult related to their storyline. I mean, that's really, I mean, that's why I do what I do, right? I mean, this is what it's all about, at least for me personally, is to be able to speak to people on their own individual level, and to say, hey, I see you. Others may not see you, but I see you, and hey, I get it. I understand. I understand what it's like to go through something traumatic. I understand what it's like to feel invisible, and to be able to convey that, even though it's in a fictional world, on a level that is relatable, on a level that feels genuine and authentic. That has always been my endeavor.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. It is such a great opportunity for so many great lessons to learn, and how to really endure through so many great things. I think that as a writer, when you get the feedback, it is so powerful, because that is the point. You've taken a time to create a world, and how others can relate to that and how it impacts you. We watch, we think loosely of the word entertain, but really it is a time of learning, right? Even in my favorite book, maybe with all the millions out there, your favorite book, there was a pretty good teacher that told a lot of stories through taught a lot of lessons through stories. And so that whole idea is, when we can connect it together, it can be really, really powerful. So
Mhm.
speaking of this, we've kind of just started a little bit. So I wanted to ask this question now, is that, what pain does your story resolve?
Mm. That's a really good question. You know, my I don't think I write the typical type of fiction. And what I mean when I say that is, my characters tend to go through a lot. So my characters tend to deal with trauma. They're dealing with unexpected things that are thrown at them, you know, that kind of comes at them sideways, you know, these twists and turns of life, things that they feel like are horrible that's happening to them. I put them in positions where they feel like they're not in control, to, you know, to show how do they deal with that. What are they feeling in these moments, when someone makes them feel small? What is their response, and then how are other people viewing that response? So I try to show the different angles and facets of those different situations, but I tend to put my characters in very unique and very difficult situations for them, to show that, hey, all of us have things to deal with. All of us have traumas to overcome. It may be at varying levels, but we all have these different challenges and issues of life that we have to confront. And I like to show the different ways that we can confront those issues of life, and to show that there's multiple ways to try to overcome them, and also to show that success looks differently for each of us. I think comparison is very dangerous. And so one of the things that I try to do in my books is to show the many different facets of addressing a particular situation. There could be five right solutions, right? It depends on the person. And so I try to show the different ways that my characters deal with those things, how they confront the different issues that are tossed at them, and what they're feeling like in those moments, just the raw emotions and how they're dealing with that.
So, in all of those kinds of things, when you're thinking about emotions as an author, do you have pieces of your life that you're like, oh, I know exactly how this situation would feel like? And so, do you embed those moments of emotion within your character?
Oh, absolutely. I think that any, writer worth their salt will do that. Anytime, especially if it's a heightened emotion like sadness, fear, anger. I try to put myself in that position when I was a teen. What did I feel like when something similar happened, or when I had a friend and I was trying to console them, and what did it feel like for us to go through this situation? So absolutely, yeah, I definitely rely upon my own life experiences to be able to convey the rawness of certain emotions. I think that's the reason why I think my characters are so raw and realistic, in a way that perhaps in other fiction books they may not be. I don't always have like the fairy tale, character or the fairy tale ending. And the reason why I don't do that is because I do want my characters to be realistic and lifelike. And I want people that are going through so many difficult issues in life to be able to say that, oh, you know what? I may not be going through what he's going through, but I'm going through something similar, or I have a friend that went through this. And so just to be able to relate to them on a level, a very basic level that allows them to know that, hey, there's hope. And if this character can deal with this, so can you.
That's really true. If that character can, it gives you that boost, and that's that piece of hope. Joan has a question up here for us. It says, they say, do you have plans on creating another series?
I don't, I remember years ago when someone asked me, are you ever going to write a series? And I was like, absolutely not. I don't think I would be interested in that. And I did. So I don't think I should say it, because I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. So I very well might. I think, writing a series, I think it's a very difficult thing than writing a standalone book. I think there's pros and cons to both. I love the continuation and continuity of storytelling that you get from a series. But sometimes I do like the power that comes from just writing a standalone fiction book. So I think both appeal to me. And I definitely have, throughout this endeavor of writing a series, have learned, how to face the challenges of doing that. I hope that I've done it successfully. But yeah, I don't know. I might in the future. I think only time will tell.
Right, right. And I think with that, how many books will be in this series? 3, 4?
There will be three. So
3.
the book that
Okay.
just released is the second book in the series. So there's one more coming.
Okay, and what is the name of this book that you just released again? Let's make sure everybody knows it.
Sure. It's The Pen Thief and the Chamber of Power. So this is the second book in the Pen Thief series.
Awesome. Incredible. Well, Vivian has a great question for you. Who knows what idea will come to you next grocery store again?
That's
Right.
true. That's why I say I get all of my best ideas when I'm doing everyday, really mundane things. At least that's the way that it works for me. So yeah, you're right. Who knows?
Yep, who knows? That download might just hit and you'd be like, I need the napkin. Where am
Yeah.
I going to write
Yeah,
this
truly.
down? Truly, truly great things. So, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this. And when did you release your book?
It launched June 7th.
And how are things going? How are the sales? How are people being able to get a hold of you? Where can they find this book? Let's shout that out for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so far so good. It's had a really positive response. Actually, before my book officially launched, I had people asking me like when the next book in the series is coming. I'm like, let's let this book launch first, guys. So I'm glad that people are excited about it. I mean, I think that this message has really hit home for a lot of people. So the books in the series, and actually all of my books, are available anywhere where books are sold: Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. That those are the kind of the main places that you can get it. But any other book gateways should have it as well too.
Awesome, exactly. So the Pen Thief Chamber of Power, you can go to Amazon. This is her website that you guys can get onto and find things there. I took a long gander through everything. It's an incredible website. There's so much great
Thank you.
information there. Really, really well done. Again, the Pen Thief, the Chamber of Power, is what we've been talking about tonight, and it is the second book within the Pen Thief series. And so there'll be one more after this to conclude this particular series, and then we'll see what Tasha comes up with next. So with our last few minutes here, Tasha, what would you like to share with our Beacon of Light audience tonight?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's so nice to talk to everybody. So thank you so much, everyone, for your support. And really, I just hope that you share the message that I'm trying to convey in my books. You know, anti-bullying is really important to me. The message of hope, conveying that to young adults. And so I think the best way that people can help and help other young adults is to buy the book, share the book links with other people. This is really more than just fiction for me. This is more than just writing. It's more than a sale. It really is about conveying that message of hope, because so many teens deal with bullying. They deal with feeling misunderstood. They deal with feeling invisible. And not all of them have someone in their life who can understand it, who can support them. And so I think this is a really tangible way to be able to do that.
Excellent. Well done. I love this. Vivian, you're so awesome tonight. She says, I posted my review on Barnes and Noble.
Thanks,
That is
Vivian.
wonderful. Wonderful. And like anyone else out there, once you get that book and start reading it, please, please review. They help our authors do so much more. And with that momentum, they can finish the series or maybe start the other one, like Joan asked, right? We just, all of those things really help. That is true support. So please write those reviews. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, everybody who has joined us here live tonight. This has been a really great, lively conversation, and we're so grateful. So, Tasha Madison, with your amazing book, pop it back up here, The Pen Thief, The Chamber of Power. Show it loud and proud. Everyone, you can go and get this on Amazon. You can go get it at her website and anywhere else. Please leave those reviews and help her out there with that, because this is impactful for people's lives, for those young adults that you might have. And it's really great to read a little bit prior to those young adult years, so that it's kind of a prep work for when your teens and tweens really start to get into life. And thank you again, Tasha, for being such a wonderful example of just showing hope and positivity in this world. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me, April.
You bet. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.